So, you want to start dealing in spell components, eh? Everybody thinks they can just tend to a bunch of bats and make banks scraping out the cage, but in Marine you have to license every one of the little bastards. It's more time efficient to import, but then you hit the tax. Flying squirrels, however, are winged mammals, and their shit works just as good. I don't know anybody who has 400 flying squirrels, but you might find one listening to Campaign Spotlight.
Hey there, Orogenes and Belters.
In this week's Spotlight, we're chatting with Chris Pramas about running a TTRPG publishing house.
Let's roll initiative.
So, you've been on a ship for the past week. You've all come out from the continent, and you are heading towards the city of Freeport, which is sometimes called the City of Adventure or the Crossroads of the World. Freeport was founded by pirates. Initially, it was just a convenient place for pirates to stop and get water and so on. And little settlement grew up, and then more people came, and it eventually turned into a little pirate city-state. And there were a series of great raids to the continent that got everybody mad. So then it was a big war. One of the first Sea Lords of Freeport decided that it was better to appease them. So he stabbed his commander in the back, let the Continental Navies wreck that guy, and he sailed back to Freeport and announced that the city was going legitimate. But this is Sea Lord Drac. He was the first one. He's a pragmatic guy. He knew he wasn't gonna, make the pirates stop being pirates. So he came up with a plan that the city was gonna host privateers. Now, privateering is legalized piracy. So the way it works is someone on the continent is having a war. They want to add some oomph to their navy. They can hire pirates who get what's called a letter of marque, and that allows them to legally take part in the war and take prizes and things like that. Freeport has thus become useful. It's also a center of merchant trade and so on. It is this linchpin between the continent and the wider shores, stranger shores, we call them. So there's people from all sorts of places coming in and out of the city, many languages, many gods. As you pull into the harbor, you can see Freeport lay before you. There's a big lighthouse that you can see, big harbor, lots of docks and so on. And as you get closer, it's the smell that hits you first. Tidal flats, everything a city might generate. You've heard things about Freeport, that there's a neighborhood called Scurvy Town. Scurvy Town is where there's a lot of gangs and a lot of crime. And on the other end, there's the merchants districts, and that's where the rich people live. They have a watch. Other people, not as much. So, as you pull into the harbor, I want you to think about what has brought your character to Freeport. And now, we're going to make characters for the Fantasy Age RPG. So we can start with, who are you and why are you here?
That is a hell of an introduction. Chris, welcome to Campaign Spotlight.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
I love getting the whole sweeping history of Freeport. This is extremely fun. Also, Scurvy Town, a great name for a district.
Thank you.
Also, not enough intros now that I think about it, where they talk about what a city would smell like. Mm-hmm. I hadn't considered that, but yeah, that is a powerful part of...
Yes. Yes, I could have described that part better, but you get the idea.
We can use our imagination, fill in some of it.
Yeah.
Do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
No. I'm Chris Pramas. I'm the founder and president of Ronin Publishing. This year is our 25th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You make a lot of cool TTRPGs, and you also play them. Do you mind telling us about, I guess, the games you play and going from there?
Sure. So we had a game night at my house that started when I moved to Seattle in 1997. I was apartment living then, but we started this weekly game night that went, pretty well weekly until 2020. And then something happened, and it wasn't a great idea to get together anymore. So, I started doing VTT gaming like everybody did, but I didn't actually host a game night at our house until last November. So it was quite a dry spell. Everyone in my game group, they'd all been playing Baldur's Gate 3, which is a fantastic game. And I've run previous campaigns where I'm trying to teach people the setting, and it's just not pulling them in. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to set this campaign in Baldur's Gate because you all know the setting already. You know who the power players are, who the groups are, even what the shops are. So that's going to take a lot of load off of me. I'm running this D&D campaign with the 2024 rule books. Want to test them out to see if we might want to do some more 5e supports. We previously have done some things like Book of the Righteous, Book of Fiends, and the Blue Rose Adventurer's Guide, which is like a 5e adaptation of the setting of our Blue Rose role-playing game. So that's what I've been doing. I set them up sort of like in the video game where it's going to take them a little bit to actually get to Baldur's Gate.
Sure.
So finally, last week, they got there.
Congratulations.
Did a whole murder mystery in Candlekeep. It was very complicated. But
how are you liking the 2024 rules so far?
I like them. I mean, it's an iteration of what people liked. So it's also super easy to use 2014 material. Right. You can pull a monster from an old supplement. It's not a problem. Maybe you want to beef up hit points, but that's up to you. It was honestly nice to have a new player's handbook that had really redone the basics, redone the classes, offered more subclasses and things like that.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess it's fascinating to me that your home game is in Dungeons and Dragons because you've worked on so many other cool systems yourself.
Yeah. But I did actually work on Dungeons and Dragons too.
You did?
Yes. I worked at Wizards of the Coast from 1998 to 2002. Oh, wow. And while I was there, I wrote books for 2nd edition AD&D. So I wrote The Guide to Hell, a book called Slavers, which is a sequel to the classic Slave Lords Adventures of the early 80s. And I wrote a book called Vortex of Madness. And then I went on to be on the team that made the D&D Chainmail Miniatures game, which had a brief lifespan for reasons I won't go into this podcast.
Fair enough. We'll have you back on the show another time, and you can.
That's a whole story.
Very cool. And since then, you've made systems. Fantasy Age, I think, being the one that is kind of the one that has the most iterations of it at this point.
So I started the company while I was at Wizards, actually.
Yes.
So I started in the year 2000, and it was just a side project because at the time I was working on miniatures games, but I kind of missed being involved in role-playing. Sure. So I was like, well, I'll start up a little side company, publish some things. And then the idea of the open game license was floated at Wizards.
Right.
And I was in meetings with the rest of R&D, where this was kind of pitched to everybody as a thing, which there were many mixed reactions to.
It was a big change.
Very big. Yes. Yes. I mean, old TSR used to go after people sometimes for violating their copyrights and whatever. And the OGL and the D20 system trademark license was like, hey, go ahead and make D&D adventures and source books and whatever.
And people made hundreds of them right away.
Yeah, yeah. So we had one of the firsts. I wrote an adventure called Death in Freeport, which is the very first public view of the Freeport setting that I used in our intro. And we had that for sale at Gen Con 2000, which was when the 3rd edition D&D Player's Handbook came out. Wow. So... there were 2 adventures you could buy at Gen Con that year, Death in Freeport, and then Atlas Games had an adventure called 3 Days to Kill. And that was it. If you had a new player's handbook, you want to run something.
Because Wizards didn't have their own adventure book. So,
no,
right, because
it was just a player's handbook.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So by the end of the convention, I'm walking around the hotels and things, and I'm seeing people in hotel bars, like running my adventure.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's like, I think I'm onto something here.
And I guess at Gen Con, people are really flying out there, and then they are just playing games on site for a big chunk of the con sometimes.
Yes. Gen Con, I've been to every Gen Con since 1989.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's not a record. There's older people than me, but
Sure.
It has been a constant in my life. I've seen a lot of changes, including the shift from Milwaukee to Indianapolis, where it's been since 2003.
Right. I guess it was in Lake Geneva before that.
It was originally in Lake Geneva. Yeah. It was in something called the Horticultural Hall there at Lake Geneva, which was very small.
It sounds like it.
And for the, I guess it was 50th anniversary of Gen Con, in the big football arena that is now part of Gen Con, they measured out the space of Horticultural Hall, and then they did like a Gen Con museum.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. They had some really interesting artifacts there. A couple of my things, which was nice. But you could feel the space and see, small beginnings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, Gen Con, like 20 people can go and have completely different experiences. Like there's so much going on.
That's very cool. We I guess we've only really been to local cons at this point. We loved OrcaCon and things of that scale, and Dragonflight Con and things like that are pretty local. But I can't imagine the experience of going to one that large. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's something. I mean, it's like 75,000 people, I think, these days.
Wow.
I have to actually cap it now.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I guess let's talk about the games that you've made since then.
All right.
It would be cool to, I guess you've built a lot of supplements for Freeport that are D&D compatible for the most part.
Yeah, for our first 5 years, we largely did D20 type adventures and source books and settings and things like that. The very first game we did, which came out a month before Death in Freeport, was Orc, the role-playing game, which was a beer and pretzels game that my friend Todd created the setting for and I designed the rules for. And it's a beer and pretzels game. Like, you're young orcs who come out of the gunk pit and you're trying to make a name for yourself. And it's sort of like Paranoia with orcs, kind of.
That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was our very first game. And then we did Mutants and Masterminds in 2002. That started life as a superhero source book for the D20 system. But Steve Kenson, who designed it, was coming to me and saying, well, should I cleave to the D20 rules or should I make something that's better for the genre? And I was just like, just always make it better for the genre. So by the time, it had taken shape, it was clear we should just publish it as a separate game. So we did, and then that's our longest running game. It's in its third edition, and it's third edition came out in 2010, so it's 15 years on one edition. It's pretty good.
I feel like it's really been the whole cycle of like the superhero boom has been like during the time the Mutants and Masterminds has been out.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Like the start of those movies doing well, and then like the Marvel bubble, and now I don't know how to describe where things are now.
I mean, people still like comics and superheroes. So.
Oh, for sure, but the huge commercial success era. I guess I'm really curious about these games that have lasted so long, because what people want. So I think genre tropes have shifted a little bit, but what people want from TTRPGs has shifted a ton over time.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? From like eras of like, painting minis, people wanting like dungeon crawls, like urban fantasy, people watching actual plays and seeing like improv comedians and being like, this is an improv comedy game.
Yeah.
And I guess, how do these systems that have lasted so long, I guess, what are your thoughts on how they can, meet that changing expectation of what games are? Because Mutants and Masterminds has had the same rules for a while, but people will keep playing it, just playing different kinds of games, I guess.
Yes. So the thing about the Mutants and Masterminds game system is that it's very powerful, because you need to be able to model anything from like, Aunt May, to godlike aliens and so on. So people use it for all kinds of things.
Yeah, that's right.
It's got what are called power levels instead of character levels. This basically like pegs the base power of characters in the campaign. So typically you would do a power level 10 campaign, which is just like classic 4-color comic superheroes.
Got it.
But you can go down to like PL 6 or 8 and do more like gritty, like, street campaigns, right? And up if you want to do crazy stuff. We had the DC Comics license for a few years, and so we did a DC version of Mutants and Masterminds. It's actually where the third edition rules debuted, and that was called DC Adventures. And so it's fun because we got to stat up Superman and Batman, and stuff like that, which of course engenders arguments because.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yes, everyone disagrees.
The whole Bat family, every one of them has to have distinct stats, and I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I guess that I'm really curious about that. What is the process of working on these more licensed games where there is a pre-existing work of fiction that you're building a game that kind of tries to capture that, but also make it playable? Yeah.
Well, so the first thing that we do when we're going to adapt something from books or what have you, is a real deep reread of everything, while trying to think about how you make a game out of it. And some things lend themselves to RPGs better than others.
Right.
Because some things are really like, it's about one hero, and the one hero changes everything, so where does your party fit?
If one member of the party is Superman and everyone else is like Jimmy Olsen, that's like a real specific kind of game.
Yeah. So we had the Game of Thrones license for a bunch of years before there was a TV show, which was a good deal for us because when the TV show came on, we had a
I
game.
can imagine.
It's called A Song of Ice and Fire Role-Playing. And so what we did there was we created a system for you to create a house in Westeros. So you weren't one of the great houses like the Starks and what have you. You were, one of the houses that has sworn fealty to one of the great houses. And so when you were making your characters, it wasn't like you meet in a bar. It's like you are all members of this family, and like what role do you have within the family, right?
But you were not the most important person in the Seven Kingdoms.
You were not.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was cool, some people could be like the heir of the family or what have you. Some people could just be, in the military side of the family or there was tons of options. And also because in the books, there are lots of characters who are kids. in most role-playing games, are generally like, don't play a kid. But we want to have a way for you to do that.
Sure.
So basically, we had this, oh God, what the hell is it called? Sorry, it's been a while. We had this like fortune type thing, and you could choose the age of your character. The younger you were, the more of this fortune that you had, because you had, decades in front of you.
Right.
Your older characters could do more things, but they had less fortune. And you could also play some very old characters, because those are also in the books, and they have like little to none.
That is a
Yeah.
really cool way to represent it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's like you can play whatever you want, and there's benefits and drawbacks to each one. But, you can have your individual goals, but also you're also striving to advance your house in the Game of Thrones. So that, that's how we chose to represent the nature of the books in the game.
And this feels like a really satisfying way to represent, like, because some systems you've worked on, like the Expanse system, there it's really natural. There's like a team of people, they're all specialized in things,
Yep.
they're all kind of the same, like social status and same like level of power. Whereas in something like, Game of Thrones world, it is cool to think about, how you represent that in a way that actually still makes it feel like the books, but also like fun to play.
Yeah, exactly. With the Expanse, it's easy to see what adventures can be like,
Right.
because they are, the main characters are essentially an adventuring party.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess the most recent one, as when we're recording this, would be the 5th season game.
Yes.
I guess I'm really curious about that one, because that's a world where, most people are just people, and then some of them have really spectacular abilities.
Yes.
What was the process like of designing that in a way that makes it fun to play, but also not making your PCs the most powerful people in the world?
Right. So we took some inspiration from what we had done in Game of Thrones with the house creation system. But this time, you start by creating what's called a comm, which is a community. And in the world of the 5th season, basically, Father Earth hates humanity, and periodically there are what are called seasons, these 5th seasons, that are these terrible natural catastrophes that are usually different. So it's like hard to prepare, when you don't know what the next thing is going to be. So the way the society has developed, there are these comms, and they're essentially always prepping for the next season because they want to survive. And so that is the glue that holds your group together in that instance, because ultimately, the GM is going to launch a season on you, and you're going to try to live through it.
Got it. So you and by playing as a comm, you kind of have a built-in dynamic of a party already.
Yes.
Or by playing as like the most important people in a comm, I guess.
Yes, and in the books there are roles like strong back and so on, that lend themselves very well to character concepts, right? You want to defend?
Such a
play
grim
strong
world.
back. Yeah. So in sort of the standard game, the only origin you can play is like a wild origin who has some limited talents. But we have an appendix at the back of the book that talks about if you want to have something like a fulcrum-trained origin in the party,
right,
and what the pros and cons of that are. And, it's definitely...
An oops, all alabasters party.
Yeah. It's just like, I can swing a sword. Like, I can make a volcano erupt. Like, it's a very different level of power. But we felt like we should represent that in some way.
And I guess in terms of playtesting, do people gravitate towards having the more I can create a volcano type roles, or?
When we did most of the playtesting, we hadn't developed those rules. As time went on, we were like, you know what? I think we ought to. Our plan had been to put them in a separate source book that was all about the fulcrum.
Got it.
Originally, but then we began to feel like, we ought to have something in the core rule book because it's so central.
That makes a
the
lot
novels.
of sense.
Yeah.
I guess that I had assumed, maybe naively, that playtesting happened pretty early. Maybe it would be interesting to hear about what the process looks like from like inception to a game being released. Like, what are the steps of that happening?
Okay, well, every game is different.
Oh, of course.
But our general process is that, and COVID played some havoc with this, but the way we prefer to do things, as a company, we are spread out all over the country, and even into Canada. And so we don't often, we're not all together in the same place very often. Sometimes at something like Gen Con, but then we're working. Mm-hmm. So a long time ago, we started doing a yearly summit where we would fly everyone here to Seattle. And they used to just be at Nicole and mine's house. Nicole's my wife and the co-owner of Green Ronin, along with Hal Mangold, our third owner. So we used to do them at our house because the company was smaller.
Oh, sure. But
then at a certain point, we would like rent a place for a weekend. It's fun to get everyone together. We would kind of debrief the previous year and then plan the coming year and beyond.
Right.
And so part of that was we would look at pitches. So typically people would submit pitches ahead of time, and then there'd be a part of the weekend where we would talk about the pitches and see what we might want to do. So fifth season actually started as a pitch from, I believe it was James Gates, we had a fiction line that was going at the time. And James and maybe Joe Carricker. Anyway, several people were like, this would be a good thing to get, if we could do it. So.
Was this around the time like the third book was coming out, or?
When was it? 18?
Okay. So the series is kind of out and people are aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to check the dates. I don't,
no problem.
I don't remember. So I went about trying to get the license.
Sure.
And so I have negotiated all our licensing things except for one. So I got contact info, talked to N.K. Jemison and her agent and pitched it to them. And we were able to make a deal. So once we had a deal, then it was design time. I created something called the Adventure Game Engine, which was originally for our Dragon Age role-playing game. This is another licensed game that we have done in the past, based on BioWare's video game franchise. And people really liked that system. And when I was negotiating with BioWare, I told them that we wanted to retain ownership of the system. And they were like, but why? And I'm like, so I could maybe do something else with it later. You don't need to own the system. You own the IP. Right. So they're like, yeah, okay, we don't care. And that was like a really wise thing that I did to pat myself on the back slightly. So we were able then to create a series of games powered by the Adventure Game Engine.
Yes.
So Fantasy Age was the next one. And then after that, we did Modern Age. We did an Age version of our Blue Rose game, which originally came out in 2005. We did the Expanse. And so for fifth season, it was adapting those rules. But every time we do a game with the Adventure Game Engine, we have to customize the rules to fit the setting,
right?
Obviously. So Steve Kenson was the lead designer, and Joe Carricker and Tanya DePass worked as developers. First it was design, then internal playtesting, some development, and then outside playtesting, and all that eventually leads to a manuscript that has taken into account the feedback we've received and what we've observed in playtests and so on. And then that development is finished on it, and then it goes off to editing. Editing is typically done out of house for us. We've got a bunch of freelance editors that we work with. And then while that's happening, the art process starts. By this point, we ideally have a cover already. That's like the first thing to do because...
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So we sell into the hobby market and the book trade. So the hobby market is like game stores, things like that. The book market is like, Barnes & Noble and those sorts of places, plus some comic stores too. So the book trade in particular, ideally, they want you to tell them something is coming 9 months in advance, which for a tabletop RPG company is honestly difficult because, most of us are small operations and shit happens.
Right.
So anyway, so that's why you want to get a cover first. Also, we were going to crowdfund this season, so we definitely wanted to have a cover available and some internal art too. Hal Mangold, co-owner, he also does our art direction and layout. Hal will do like a rough layout of the book to see where we would need art. And then an art order gets written, of appropriate art for those spaces that are available. And then when everything comes together, Hal gets it all into one finished PDF. There's several rounds of proofreading. In the case of a license, you have to send it off for approvals. So N.K. Jemisin is not going to let Alice put out a game about her books that she hasn't seen.
Oh, sure, right.
And different licensors approach it in different ways. Some of them, they want to see the iterations. They want to see the early manuscripts, the early art, and so on. But they're often very busy people. So some of them are just like, when it's done, show it to me. And if they want any changes at that point, we will accommodate.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's actually where we are right now with the 5th season. We have submitted the finished PDF to N.K. Jemisin for approval, and we're waiting to hear back.
I'm really excited for that game to come out.
Yeah.
It's a really good books, really grim world.
Yeah. Yeah. So, once we get approval, then it goes to print. Right. And then for that, there was a whole crowdfunding element as well. When we do RPG crowdfunders, we always try to have a quick start that you can download like the day that the campaign starts.
Right.
So in addition to doing the book and everything, we also did this like 32-page quick start that's got like basic rules, pre-generated characters, and an adventure. So if you see we have a Kickstarter, you can immediately see what are the rules like? How does the game play?
The general vibe of what it'll be like when it's done.
Yeah. So crowdfunding adds an extra layer to everything because there's things you have to have ready for that, which you wouldn't probably normally need at that stage. But, we want there to be a quick start. We want there to be a cover. We want to show interior art, and all that sort of stuff. Once it goes off to print, we'll send PDFs to the backers before that. And then when things come back, like, you got to give it to backers first. There have been some companies that have been like, well, we really need to sell us at Gen Con, so sorry, everybody. Even though you backed this 2 years ago, people who walk up to our booth are going to get it first. It's like, no. That is a poor idea.
If that's the last Kickstarter you'll ever do, then it's okay, but otherwise...
And I understand it. Gen Con's a really expensive show to do.
Sure.
So if you're looking down the barrel of, oh no, we have no new releases, like, it's serious. But I just think the PR damage is too great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, backers get it first,
right.
And then we sell it into the hobby and the book trade. and direct orders, PDFs and stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Thank you for explaining the whole process like this. I'm really curious as to what that iteration during development looks like. We don't have to talk about the licensor part. I feel like that might be harder to discuss generally. But, what does the iteration look like when we've adapted the age system to this new world with this new set of rules and this new vibe to it. And now some playtesting has happened.
Yeah.
I guess, what does that back and forth look like, and how much changes during it?
Well, I mean, it honestly depends on how good the game is when it comes in.
Okay, fair.
Some things need more help than others, right? And then the playtest is really crucial in banging out some things that like look like they'd be good, but then in practice you're like, this isn't really working. Some things it's more a matter of fine tuning, where it's like, particularly with our adventure game engine games, because we've been making those games since like 2008. We know the system, obviously, and we know how to adapt it. So that's easier for us. But still, when you create a bespoke system like spaceship combat in the Expanse, for example, you definitely need to playtest that harder. And then, you see what kind of feedback you get. And some of it you just have to dismiss because there's always the people who were like, this is the worst thing ever and I will refuse to buy this game. And you're just like, that is not helpful playtest feedback. Helpful playtest feedback is like, I did this, and this is how it went. And I think maybe this needs work, or, we're not looking for you to design the game. A lot of people are like, you should do it this way. And that's not really what we want to see. We want to hear back how it went for them using the rules as they were. And then we can collate that information and be like, well, like 6 people have mentioned this thing, so, we should take a deeper look at that, and so on. And sometimes you're just like, oh, right, yes, I should have done that. Whoops.
Every playtester says the same thing. Yeah. I guess how much specificity do you have when you're asking people for that feedback? Is it really kind of play the game, tell us how it felt? Or is it like play the game and tell us how character creation felt, how combat, like what degree of granularity are you hoping for from them?
Sometimes we've just done like, here's the manuscript, play the game. But these days we tend to do more like, we recruit playtesters and give them some of the material, and then we'll give them a questionnaire, asking them specific questions. And, there's always room on that for just like general feelings,
that makes sense.
So on. That lets us kind of hone in a little better.
That makes a lot of sense, especially I think spaceship combat is such a good example because that's something that a lot of TTRPGs want to do. And we all kind of know that actually doing like orbital mechanics in a game probably wouldn't be very fun.
Yeah.
But we also don't want it to feel like old-timey naval combat.
Right.
And so I appreciate that that's something where it is just going to be hard to, like, that does require some trial and error and iteration to feel like this is an actual spaceship combat, but we're not having to do a bunch of math or something like that on the fly.
Yeah, the spaceship combat chapter, like, it starts with a bunch of like actual physics, which it's not like you need to learn it. It's, it's not a textbook, but for the people who are interested, like, it's there. Right. And then there's the actual system, which is, what you do in play. Spaceship combat typically happens at ranges that are so far, that it's not cinematic, right?
I was just going to ask about that because some of these systems, it's really hard to imagine. Like, obviously Game of Thrones, we have an idea of what that looks like in a cinematic sense.
Yeah.
But some of these systems, it's really hard to imagine what it's like from the point of view of a character.
Yeah.
And I think we all do have that camera in our heads with a lot of TTRPGs.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's why, what you'll often see is things like a space station assault, right? Or, you're going in and trying to, so there's a little bit of stuff in space, but then like you're inside. So it's, all that is like up close. For some of the bigger things that happen in the Expanse, like the distances are incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the shift of games away from having minis kind of facilitated more realistic spaceship combat. Actually, it would be kind of fun to do at scale spaceship combat, where it is like 1,000 to 1 or something. And
Well, we are in fact making spaceship miniatures for the Expanse. It was part of our latest Expanse crowdfunder. We're doing a new edition of the game called the Transport Union Edition.
ooh,
As part of that, we wanted to do minis. I'm a miniatures guy. A lot of the gaming that I do just personally is miniatures games. So we're working with a company called War Games Atlantic, and they typically do historical stuff, but they do these cool multi-part hard plastic kits.
oh, extremely fun.
So we're doing one set that is like Spaceship Crew, which is essentially like pick the pieces you like and make your character. And, you know, you can also use it for NPCs or whatever. And war gamers, you know, if they play some of the miniatures agnostic games, you know, grab a set, you know, make a crew.
That's that's really fun. But I
Yeah.
mean, I guess, like, are you playing on a football field, or how do you like?
You're using the same rules as the RPG.
Okay,
it just
fair
gives
enough.
you ways to represent it. And they just look cool.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess, like, so, right, and this, I think, one of the things I was curious about that I think this supplement gets to is once the system is out, it's been published, the backers have gotten it, it's in stores.
Yeah.
What does that kind of post-publication iteration look like, right? Because in some cases, Green Ronin releases a whole new edition. In other cases, there have been decades of supplements to the same system. I guess, what is that? Is that something that just gets pitched at that annual meeting as well? Or how do those come out?
Yeah, we will usually have a product plan for the game. The sort of traditional way to do it is, you know, put out a game and then periodically you put out supplements for it. And the purpose of those supplements, in addition to giving people more things to do with the game, is also just keeping the game in people's minds.
Right.
You know, if you put out a new supplement, like a game store buyer might be like, oh, right, you know, we sold out of that core book. We should get some more of those in alongside this new thing. But things have changed over the years, and that's not always the wisest thing to do. So we have done limited scope games. You know, like Orc, the role-playing game, was a single book and
Right.
some PDFs. And
Quite some time ago now, too.
yeah, we did a second edition
Okay.
in like 2018. So yeah, that's in print if you want to go be orcs. But yeah, when it does come to new editions, like, so for the Expanse thing, when we put out the initial game, the book series was not done. So, you know, we didn't know how it was going to end.
Right.
And we decided to set it in between the first two books.
Okay.
So people knew about the proto-molecule, but, you know, the ring gates hadn't opened or
The
any of that
whole
stuff. Yeah.
system wasn't all set up, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then, you know, our notion was to release source books that would then bring the campaign forward in time.
Very cool.
So, yeah, we did one called Beyond the Ring, and that introduced a whole new style of play where you're going to go out and explore these distant systems and maybe, you know, start a colony or find ancient things you should leave alone. You know, who knows? We've been working on the Free Navy conflict. So that's going to be about Marcos and Aros and all that stuff as well. But they reached a point where we had once again sold out of Expanse core rulebooks.
Got it.
And we were like, well, you know, we could just do like another reprint, or we could consider a new version of the core book. What we didn't want to do is make people feel like all the books they had were no good anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and this is something that with Wizards of the Coast books, sometimes it has felt like in the past.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's just what a new edition is, right? So for the Transport Union edition, we thought the obvious thing to do was to move the timeline forward. So as it worked out with the books, there is a big time gap between the 6th book and the 7th book, like 30 years.
Yeah.
And, I've talked to Ty and Daniel, the authors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we work with them directly. It's actually pretty nice.
I guess that does make sense, right? Because they have probably a lot of world building idea and like the tone of it that is just not conveyed in the books.
Yeah. And they're also, bless them, old role players. So
cool.
They know exactly what we're doing, which is very refreshing. Yeah. I guess I won't tell stories out of school, but that has not always been the case with things we have done.
I'm trying to avoid asking you questions that are like tell us about licenses that were difficult to work with.
Hey, Reilly here, asking for your support in keeping Campaign Spotlight running. Jake and I started this podcast to showcase the creativity of home TTRPG campaigns. Since then, we've released over 60 episodes, including on-site recordings, historical deep dives, and longer in-depth conversations like this one. We love to keep talking with TTRPG creators about their work. If you enjoy the show, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/campaignspotlight. Your support helps cover the costs of producing and hosting Campaign Spotlight and also guarantees that your homebrew big bad abilities will be fun and balanced.
Yeah, we had one licensor
Sure.
who, when I submitted the book for approval, he's like, I don't understand what you want me to approve. And I was like, well, that we have faithfully representing your work, sir.
I guess if you've never played a TTRPG and you can't imagine what people are doing play acting these characters, it's got to be hard to figure out whether the book matches the vibe.
Yeah. So Ty and Daniel have been great in that regard. But anyway, Ty had said to me that would be a great time to do role-playing stuff.
Sure.
Because essentially, the main characters are there somewhere, but they're not, hogging the spotlight, as it were.
Absolutely.
So it's really a time where your group can make their mark and be important, essentially. So that's what we decided to do. Is the kind of the default for the new edition is that it's set in that era. But of course, you can do anything up to that as well. And,
right.
We have the previous source books and things. And the Free Navy Conflict book will be coming out along with the new version, when that definitely does take place before. Some people want to have out earlier, but COVID, etc. So, yeah. But we didn't want to skip that. It's obviously a super important and dramatic part of the story. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for explaining how that aspect of the life cycle worked. And you said that things have changed a little bit in terms of wanting to keep the game fresh by releasing more supplements.
Yeah.
Do you mind discussing what you meant by that?
So with the Expanse, like the basic rules in the new edition have not changed.
Right.
Right. But we have been able to expand some things out. There are some minor revisions to spaceship combat, and some extra options in places. There's some new equipment and this sort of stuff. But they're like quality of life improvements.
Right.
It's like the core game. If you know how to play it, it's the same. We want you to buy it, but you don't have to. So when we did the crowdfunder. Instead of just doing like, here's a core rule book and maybe like a game master's kit, we wanted to do more with it. So as part of the crowdfunder, the Free Navy Conflict book was part of that. A brand new adventure series called Damon's Gambit that takes place in that new era. That was part of it. and then something called the Crew Companion, which is essentially a player-focused book. So that's, we sometimes do too many books that are for the game master, and we really want to do something that was like, if you're playing in this campaign, here's a book for you. So,
it feels nice to have like a like a player's guide as well, because it is a different role, and
yeah, and it's new options for your characters,
right,
and stuff. So and then we'll see what we do after that. It's
Makes
a lot of
sense.
work to do 4 books at the same time.
I can imagine.
And shout out to the Expanse developer, Ian Lemke. He's been busting his ass, and we all appreciate it.
I'm really psyched for those books to come out.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it might be interesting to. So a lot of our listeners are making games on their own, and they're on a lot smaller scale than what you do. It's a lot of people who figure something out about their home games and want to just expand on some version of an existing system, or make a system that captures a real specific set of genre tropes really specifically, and they want to think about how to get that out into the world. And I guess I'd be curious as to what your thoughts are as someone who has developed and published a whole lot of systems. What would you recommend to people who are doing that in 2025 and kind of starting out to release their own supplements or even their own game systems?
Well, the good news about 2025 is that the barrier to entry is practically non-existent. When I started, if you were going to make a game book, you had to commit to print at least 1,000 copies. So it required some level of resources.
Oh, wow.
Because PDF sales were not a thing in the early 90s.
Whereas I guess most sales now must be PDF.
Well, it's a huge component of it.
Right.
Yeah. But, lots of people still like books. I was honestly baffled when Chris Cox from Hasbro was trying to assert that nobody wanted books anymore, so it was all going to move online and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, my dude, what are you talking about?
I feel like also there's too much suspicion and skepticism that the online portal will become like a subscription or have some kind of costly models.
Yeah.
And so I think in a lot of cases this incentivizes people to keep buying the physical media, even if no matter how convenient the online system gets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as we've seen, albums that you bought.
Oh,
right?
boy, yeah.
Suddenly, oh, I'm sorry, you can't access that anymore. Well, what do you mean? Didn't I buy it? No, you're just going to take those rights away from you now. Yeah.
Yeah, so an easier barrier to entry.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I
It's all good.
lost my train of thought. So, yeah, 20-something years ago, I would tell people, start by writing magazine articles. If you can get articles in Dragon or Dungeon or something like that, great. White Wolf still had a magazine then. There were things like Adventures Unlimited that only published adventures. There are a variety of places you could get published. And really, at that point, you needed to get published somewhere. And then once you were published, it was much easier to get additional freelance work.
Got it, because you establish credibility. And
Yeah.
those I've read quite a few of the old Dragon and Dungeon magazines, and they publish a lot of there were a lot of editions of them and a big range of what they accepted for publication.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess that's just not the model at all anymore, though.
No. Well, magazines were hard. When Dragon was selling 150,000 copies of an issue or something,
Wow.
different deal. But,
Sure.
the internet and so on, it became harder and harder to have a magazine business.
Right.
When Paizo got started, they were continuing to make Dragon and Dungeon magazine as essentially like a contractor to Wizards, even though it was the same people from Wizards
Right.
who started Paizo. But anyway, they eventually were like, well, we're getting out of the magazine business and we're just going to publish source books and things directly, because there'd be a lot of content in a magazine and they were so ephemeral,
Right.
Anyway,
So some rule sets really just existed in one magazine issue, and then you kind of had to track that one down.
yeah. Some people still do that. There's a Napoleonic war game I want to get. It's only been published as like a blow-in with an English war game magazine. Come on.
And it's not available. You can't get a PDF of the magazine or anything.
You can get like playtest versions online, but
Okay.
I wanted to get the
real thing.
the produced thing.
Right. Good luck.
I'll get it eventually. Anyway, so back then, you needed to have a certain amount of starting money, like not a lot, but you needed at least a couple $1,000s. And a big thing was getting the game distributors to carry you. So that was another barrier to entry. Essentially, the model was, and to some extent is still, the 3-tier model where you have manufacturers that make the game stuff. They sell it to distributors at a discount, and then the distributor's job is to sell it on to retailers.
Right.
So essentially, if you're a game store, you don't want to be ordering from 100 different companies individually, right? That's a nightmare. So this is why distributors exist. So the distributors had a lot of power in the 80s and 90s because if you couldn't convince them to carry your game, then you could sell at conventions and maybe mail order.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, things are a lot different now. The whole PDF market opened up in the early 2000s. And you can self-publish pretty easily. The difficulty is there's a million people putting out PDFs.
I was just going to say, I feel like the big trade-off is it used to be that, okay, if this game has gotten published, it's somewhat, I don't want to say vetted, but it meets some bar of quality.
Yeah.
Now on itch.io, there's thousands of really cool, thoughtful games and millions of... I love these games, but they're kind of unplayable. And I think it is difficult to figure out how you get your game into a situation where, hey, I've put a lot of time into this.
Yeah.
How can I credibly signal to audiences that this is something that is being play tested and edited and not just kind of directly from, my brain to the keyboard to itch?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge. I think the itch interface is terrible. I went over there just to browse, and it was like, you're making it hard for me to browse. Like, if I know what I'm looking for, okay, but...
I would like TTRPG and also no Gen AI, and having both those tags is surprisingly difficult.
Yeah. An easy way in right now are the community content programs. So the foremost of those, of course, is the Dungeon Masters Guild. People used to use the open game license to publish compatible material. Like, that's what we did for years.
Right.
But, we paid for our own art and did the layout, and no one gave us a template. It was all the onus was on you.
Right.
And so
to figure out how to make it look kind of like the source material. Yeah.
Yeah. But now there's a bunch of community content programs where there are layout templates, even for Word. Not that I recommend using Word for layout, but you can do it. And a lot of companies have an art archive that you can pull from. So a lot of the DMs Guild stuff, if you're an old gamer, you can spot this is from that source book. But it makes it easier for you to make at least a semi-professional looking product.
Right.
So that's probably the most low-hanging fruit. We have 2 community content programs now. We have the Age Creators Alliance, so you can publish adventures and source books and things for Fantasy Age and Modern Age and Cthulhu Awakens. And then we have the Chronicle System Guild. The Chronicle System is the rules engine from our Game of Thrones game,
right?
But just generically. So we made a with the IP scratched out version called Sword Chronicle, and
a game of chairs.
Yeah. So you can use those rules to do whatever you like. People have done settings and, source book stuff and what have you. So so those are our options, but a bunch of companies have these. Monte Cook Games, Chaosium, so on.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's probably a good place to start because you're at least trying to appeal to an established audience. It's harder to, I designed a brand new system. Would you look at it, please? And
right.
You publish it on DriveThruRPG, and it gets buried with 100 other new titles that day. So, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, especially for material where it is like a supplement in an existing world. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Another thing you can do, people still hire freelancers. So there's kind of there's a choice that one must make is do you want to primarily be doing the designing and writing and creating, or, do you want to try to balance that with running a business? And I chose to try to balance. It's a hard balance. I don't design as much as I used to because running a company,
sure, yeah.
especially these last 5 years, takes a lot out of you. So, some people just really prefer to take freelance assignments, and they're responsible for the design and their words, and actually publishing it is someone else's problem.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that is another way to get your name around. And that's essentially what I did. I started writing professionally in 1993. And so by the time Green Ronin started in 2000, I had been in the industry for 7 years already, and I had a previous company to Green Ronin, which was a failure, but a great learning experience for how to do better next time.
Cool. I guess as we get closer to closing, I'm curious, when you do get the chance to design games, or when you do get the chance to write for settings that you've built, what are some inspirations that you've had? What are some, I guess, books or TV shows or anything like that you feel like have really gotten your brain going when you were doing design work?
Well, so I'm basically I trained to be a historian, and then instead of trying to get my PhD after master's, I had started writing in the game industry. Very and I was cool. Well, I'm getting paid to write now, or I could go into more debt, So I didn't do that, but I've always loved history, and for decades now, I've read more history than fiction. So I get a lot of my inspiration from history, I have to say.
Any books in particular, or any sources?
Good God. So many. Well, if you want a good book about Rome, Mary Beard is one of the foremost scholars in ancient Rome. She has a book called SPQR.
Okay.
That's super good. I like a lot of ancient history. There's a more recent medieval book called The Bright Ages. Whose author I forget, but basically, he's trying to counteract these ideas that the Dark Ages were all dark, and especially if you studied history, you know that people massively abused the phrase Dark Ages in the first place, because when the phrase was coined, it was indicating a dearth of sources.
A poorly documented age.
Yes. That's what was dark about it, not that everything was terrible all the time.
I mean, things probably were terrible, but they were also terrible before and after that era.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. There's a Scottish historian who lives in India named William Dalrymple, who's written some really great books because he speaks a bunch of languages and things. He's been able to go into archives that other people never went into.
Oh, I see.
At least in the Western world. So he wrote a book called Return of a King, and it was about when the British went into Afghanistan in the mid-19th century, and they put this guy who had been the leader of Afghanistan, who had been ousted. They invaded with a British army and occupied the place, and it didn't go well for them. And eventually, people in Afghanistan rose up to throw them out. imagine.
Overthrow the same guy again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was one of the worst defeats in British military history. And, they set out in the middle of winter from Kabul to try to get back to like a friendly area.
Oh, gosh.
And they froze to death. They were sniped. It was just a horror show. So it's a great book about that. And, he was able to go into Kabul and go to like old booksellers and, find these old manuscripts that, or books that just other scholars of his ilk had never had access to.
Of course.
Yeah. But he's done a lot of great stuff. He co-hosts a podcast with Anita Arnhem. She's a journalist and historian. And so it's called Empire. And so they have done a bunch of series on different empires. So that, they've done like the Ottomans and the Persians and the East India Company. That's what they start with. And so on. And right now they're doing the Irish.
So, fascinating.
Yeah. Not as a part of the British Empire, not that Ireland was an empire.
Right.
So I really recommend the 2 episodes on the potato famine. It's freaking grim, but I think it has some resonances for things that are going on today. Like British officials deciding that, well, like we need this famine, because of sin, and this is gonna, this is gonna clean out the blood, and just all this racist nonsense. So, yeah.
I really appreciate these recommendations personally. I went to school for economics, and I will say that creates the worst possible TTRPG campaigns. The aspects of thinking about world building and power that were kind of most salient to me and the stuff that I went to school for are just not fun. You can only have your players go through so many battle auctions before they're like, I think I want some different kinds. So I really personally appreciate these recommendations. I will be tracking those down because the campaign I'm running is wrapping up, and the next one I want to do is going to be more, I guess, Empire kind of focused. And so these are really helpful for me. So thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely check out that podcast. One of the things I started doing, starting in 2020 was listening to history podcasts on my daily walks.
Oh, nice.
So it's been nice. I look forward to it. It's like, what should I listen to today?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you so much for all these recommendations. We'll definitely link to them in the show notes. Do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to, I guess before closing thoughts, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Anything that you'd like our listeners to be aware of coming out from Green Ronin or anything else?
Yes, I do. So right now we have a Fantasy Age adventure series called Lost Island of the Pirate Queen. The PDF is out. You can pre-order it, the print book, and you can get the PDF for an extra $5.
Cool.
So that is at print now. So that should be out like next month.
Before this episode comes out.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. So this brand new book. This is essentially, like what Paizo would call an adventure path, right? So it's a whole story. And it's the first really big thing that we've put out for Fantasy Age 2nd edition, because we did a new edition a couple of years ago.
Right.
So that's happening. We are working on a book called Modern Age Powers. Powers essentially is like a book for rules hackers. So it's like, here's a bunch of different ways you can do special powers for the adventure game engine. So that's in final stages of layout.
Cool.
So that should be coming out pretty soon. This month, I don't know if people are going to get this in April, but because of our 25th anniversary, we've been doing sort of themed months. So we had like Fantasy Age February and March Madness in Freeport. And this month is Astonishing Adventures April.
I love these names.
Yeah. It's fun. So Astonishing Adventures is a series of adventures for Mutants and Masterminds. Cool. So we have 3 different bundles that have different iterations of adventures they're offering, and some print stuff and a lot of PDF stuff, and so on. So that's going on. The next M&M book is the long-awaited Vigilante's Handbook, which many fans are just dying to get because we've been talking about it for a while. And then, of course, all the new Expanse stuff. Yeah. And that's hopefully we will have it at Gen Con, but we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll link to everything of that is out when this episode comes out. We will link to in the show notes for sure. I love the Expanse world, and I'm really excited for more of that to come out selfishly.
We also have a kind of a community website that we've launched called the Atomic Think Tank. And it's basically, we used to have forums, and we had a lot of our fans in the forums.
I miss the forum days in general.
This is what's happened is that, like a lot of companies, we were like, well, we don't really need forums anymore because it's Facebook and whatever. But then the conversations all got splintered off into so many other sites.
Right.
So we created this to be a center for our community. There are, free message board type things. They're always available. And then for Mutants and Masterminds, there's a paid tier where you get access to playtest material, for example, and you get to look over some things early, or sometimes there's special PDFs that are done, like just for subscribers. We may collect later in release, but, you get it.
Right.
Get to play with it first.
Cool.
And we'll be doing the same thing for the Adventure Game Engine. So if you're interested in Green Ronin games, that's a good place to go.
That is really good to know, and thank you for bringing back forums, because as great as algorithmically mediated tech giants are, and as much as we all love them, it is there is something nice about that kind of freewheeling conversation that got lost.
Yeah, and we have 2 weekly streaming shows, cool. Mutants and Masterminds Monday, which is what it says on the tin, and then one that's called Thursdage. Where we talk about Adventure Game Engine games.
The name, I don't know about that one. But thank you so much. We'll also link to those in the show notes for sure.
Thanks.
Do you have anything else that any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
Maybe I won't get political, but man, I really
you
won't.
Can.
What I'd like to say to the audience is we need to fight fascism here in America right now.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, you're going to be very sad because the economy is going to crash and we're going to have a depression, and these stupid tariffs are affecting every game company that you know already. It is a real problem for us already, not just because of the stupid nature of the tariffs, but also because it's chaos right now. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, never mind months from now.
Right.
So, I could send a book to print in Lithuania, thinking, okay, no tariffs on Lithuania. Well, that's true now. Is it going to be true in 3 months? We don't know. So, it sucks. Yeah. So, we need to get these crooks out of here and go back to something more reasonable than endless cruelty and the enrichment of the 1%. That's what I would say.
Absolutely co-signed. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all for this week. I'm Production Master Reilly.
And I'm Dungeon Inspector Jake.
If you enjoy the show, consider subscribing and leaving a review, which helps other people find Campaign Spotlight.
If you'd like to support our work, consider going to patreon.com/campaignspotlight and becoming a patron.
And if you can hear this, help. I've been imprisoned in this cursed audio file.
For more on the show, including links to all our social media, visit foldedfrequencies.com/campaignspotlight.